Hello, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the TDLR and the Texas Advisory Board to order. And we'd like to begin with a roll call, which will be done by Anna Clark. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Presiding officer David Lauderson.
Here.
Russell Rust. Sir, I think your mic is muted. Russell Rust.
Present.
Thank you. Susan Sparks.
Present.
Paul Stone. Sir, I think your mic is muted.
My mic, you can't hear me right now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Caroline Guerin.
Present.
Carol Willis.
I am present. It looks like my camera is frozen, so I'm going to pull up another computer.
Okay. Antonio Gracia Jr.
Here, present.
and Kitra Taylor. We have a quorum, sir.
Okay, very good. So the next step would be to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was January 21st, 2021.
Johnny, go on.
Caroline Guerin, board member. I approve the minutes from January 21st.
Would you like to make a motion to approve the minutes, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion. Susan Sparks, board member.
Okay, thank you. The minutes now are accepted as approved.
We need to do a roll call vote, sir.
Okay, very good.
Russell Rust,
Aye.
Susan Spark,
I approve.
Paul Stone. Sir, you're muted.
Yes, aye.
Caroline Guerin,
I approve.
Carol Willis,
Approved.
Antonio Gracia Jr. Sir, you're muted. Mr. Gracia?
Approved.
Thank you. Kitra Taylor? Ma'am, you're muted.
I approve.
Thank you. And presiding officer David Lauderstein.
I approve.
The motion passes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, minutes are approved. So we move on to the public comment section. And
Yeah. Yes, sir. We have two people for public comment who wish to speak at today's meeting. We also had 7 emailed public comments that were given to the board Friday afternoon. Those will not be read out loud. But we have 2 people, David Sproles and Brendan McBratney. We're going to bring David to the meeting. Mr. Sproles? Oh, it says David is not connected. Okay, so we'll move David. When he gets back into the meeting, we'll go ahead and have him speak. Mr. Brendan McBratney, we'll be moving him to the meeting. Mr. McBratney, can you hear me? It looks like your mic is muted, sir. Mr. McBratney?
Brian France, it looks like he's having those connectivity problems. Maybe he's
Okay.
on now, though.
Okay. Presiding officer, Mr. Lauterstein, do you want to go ahead and move past the public comment and come back to it when our people log back in? I'm sorry, sir, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah. That would be fine. Thank you so much. So then I believe we'll move into staff reports. And I'd like to
Yes,
call.
ma'am, I can hear you okay. Can you hear me?
Anna, we have Brent,
Oh.
Mr. McBratney
yes,
is back.
Brent.
Okay, very good.
Hello,
had a-
Mr. McBratney.
Good morning. How are y'all today?
Good morning. Good, thank you. You will have 3 minutes to speak. The advisory board is not allowed to comment or ask questions on your public comment, except for clarifying questions. You can go ahead and begin at any time. I'll go ahead and time you, sir.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And wait.
Whoop.
Did we lose him? I think we lost him again.
Mr. McBratney, you're visible on the screen. Can you try to say something, see if we can hear you?
Hold on.
We can hear you.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I can.
Okay. I had the YouTube going in the other ear. So I apologize. I've had WebEx. I had to uninstall and reinstall it just now. I got in just at the end.
You're
But-
perfect, man. You're absolutely perfect.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for having me here today to speak publicly. And the reason I'm calling is we're entering a new era in the massage therapy world. The last several decades have been wonderful. We've been able to grow our industry and our profession. We're coming into the era of being truly considered as a healthcare professional rather than as just massage therapists, which is fabulous. Unfortunately, though, throughout the last several decades, the existing training systems for creating new massage therapists have not been adequate to supply the demand. And I'm speaking on behalf of Massage Envy and the 111 clinics in Texas that are in this particular brand, as well as for the rest of the industry. But just in our brand, last year, we turned away approximately 800,000 clients that were in search of services that were unable to receive those services. And we have today approximately 800 licensed massage therapist positions available to be filled to be able to provide those services to those clients, yet those positions remain unfilled because there are not enough massage therapists available in the entire state of Texas to fill those positions. Now, I'd like to bring to your attention in the Occupations Code, section 455.004, which is the applicability of the chapter. And in that particular section of the code, it states that if higher education were desired to be part of the training of licensed massage therapists, they're exempt from the Massage Therapy Code, section 455. Now, if an institution wants to get involved, and we've had interest from several different large institutions in the last several months, including community colleges, higher education, universities that are desiring to be part of training massage therapists to provide them with professional, high quality, convenient, accessible access to education. They're not going to be covered under 455s, but they realize that they do need to be able to provide students, present them to TDLR to be licensed as massage therapists. So what we're asking from y'all in the Massage Therapy Board, as well as from TDLR, is to have a true partnership with industry, which would be the massage therapy providers, the schools, the higher education, and TDLR, the regulators, to provide safe, affordable, convenient access to high quality massage therapy education to serve those millions of clients. We only represent 10% of the actual licensed massage therapy establishments in Texas. I spoke with another private spa owner the other day. She could hire 20 massage therapists today, and she's unable to. And finally, that brings me to Senate Bill 1130, which I know is on the agenda for you all today, the implementation of online learning. That particular bill passed the House 134, I could be off a couple numbers, 134 to 9-2, near unanimous, and it passed the Senate 30-1, near unanimous consent. The people of Texas desire this. The elected representatives of those people overwhelmingly passed something in a bipartisan fashion unlike I've ever seen in my lifetime. And now it's time for us as industry, education, and regulation to work together to provide that convenient access to great high-paying jobs.
Sir, your time is up. Thank
I
you.
thought that was what the hand was. My wife does that to me sometimes.
Thank you
you
so
all
much,
very
sir.
Absolutely. Make it a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Mr. Lauterstein, we have up next David Sproles up for public comment. He should be coming into the meeting momentarily. Sir, Mr. Sproles, can you hear me? Looks like you're muted.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian Francis. While Mr. Sproles is connecting, I just wanted to let you know that Chairman Figueroa.
Hello.
The meeting.
Good
Welcome.
morning, Mr. Sproles. Excuse me, this is Anna Clark with TDLR. You will have 3 minutes. Excuse me. You will have 3 minutes to speak, to give your public comment. The board is not allowed to comment or ask any questions regarding your public comment besides any clarifying questions. You have 3 minutes and you can begin now, sir. Sir, you're muted. Mr. Sproles, are you still there? It looks like you are, okay, you're unmuted. Sir, can you hear me? Mr. Sproles, it looks like you are muted. Can you unmute? Yeah. I think Mr. Sproles is having some technical difficulties, Mr. Lauterstein. If you'd like to move on, we can have staff contact Mr. Sproles and see if we can get his technical issues resolved.
Okay, that sounds excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well then, let's move on to staff reports. I want to remind anybody that they can go to the TDLR website to see these reports. And so I'd like, first of all, to call on the licensing division. That would be Chloe, represented by Chloe Watson at this time. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Lauterstein and the board members. Chloe Whalen with the Licensing Department. I'm the licensing manager for the massage program. And for my report, we will start with personnel updates. We have joined with us Miss Karen Davis. She started on July 15th and she's doing a great job with her training. So we are super excited with our new employee. So we'll move down to our statistics report. For massage therapists, new licenses, we have 1,276. For renewed, we have 9,235. That total population right now is 25,403. For massage therapy instructors, we have, for new licenses, we have 121. Renewed, 344. Total population is 1,357. For establishments, we have processed new applications of 333. We have renewed 454. That total population is 1,997. We will also move down to the report for emergency license extension updates. For licensing, this helps anyone who has submitted their renewal to continue to work 120 days after their expired license. This helps the agency to be able to process that license and get their renewal or the renewal completed and get that license issued to that individual so that they can continue to work with an active license. We also want to strongly encourage everyone to take the option of renewing online. That helps us to get that application a little quicker than receiving it during the mail, through mail. We also want to make sure that you do not encourage the industry not to call their financial institutions to cancel those payments. We are working diligently to get those get that money processed and get the application done. And then for any other information regarding the emergency extension, you can also go to our website and review that information on our website. And that concludes my report. Chairman Lauterstein, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I have a question.
Any questions from the board then?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Susan Sparks Advisory Board. Chloe, could you tell me, is there a huge backlog with renewing, and what's the timeline to turn around and renew a license, be that massage therapist or establishment?
Yes, ma'am. We do have a backlog right now. That backlog is probably about 4 weeks out, and we process those in the order that we receive them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Also,
Okay.
Chairman Lauterstein, I would also like to just remind the industry that September 1st is coming up. So if you have not completed your fingerprint process, please do so.
Very good. Thank you, Chloe Whalen. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well then, let's move on to the Customer Service Division. And I'd like to call on Dawn Robinson, please.
Good morning, Advisory Board members and TDLR staff. My name is Dawn Robinson. I am one of the managers here in customer service. And to bring my report to you this morning for personnel updates, after 20 years of state service, 15 of those with TDLR, our Director of Customer Service, Trey Seals, has moved on to pursue other endeavors, and we wished him the best of luck in his pursuits. The impact that he had on the division and the agency cannot be overstated, and we will truly, truly miss him. As for statistics, from September 2020 to May of 2021, we have received a total of 5,349 emails, and we've responded to 26,349 phone calls. This concludes my report for this morning. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to assist. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian
Yes.
Francis, PDLR.
Sure.
I just wanted to check with you and Anna to see if Mr. Sproles is available now, Anna, and also to also recognize that the chairman, Figueroa, is here, who would like to make some comments as well. So Anna, I
Very good.
refer to you on that, and the chairman. And it just gave me joy to be able to say that.
Mr. Lauterstein, would you like to recognize Chairman Figueroa?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Chairman, thank you so much.
Please give welcome to our meeting.
Well, I appreciate that, Chairman. Thank you so much thank you so much. And Brian, thank you for your time. Listen, a couple of things. One, this post-COVID or whatever we want to call it, 2.0 version, whatever it is, the unknown is the unknown. And I want you to know that TDLR, the board, the commission is exponentially improved as where we were when this thing hit us in 2020. We are prepared to address all and any issues, but the number one priority in my mind is getting massage therapists to work, to get them trained well, and to serve this great state of Texas. That is by far is going to be, and any inhibitants, any hurdle, my job is to remove it and to make sure that it gets done as quickly. I want to work with you guys as much as possible on the advisory committee. I know you guys are our eyes and ears. We can't do it without you guys. And so it's just amazing, one, how dynamic this industry is changing, but two, that people that are working are willing to adjust so quickly. And so I commend you guys, but we're also going to be working with the industry leaders. I know that the in game, the owners of the massage therapist industries are imperative to get their input, make sure that they're getting the resources and the talents needed. But the students are learning and getting processed and getting them from the start all the way to the end product of being a massage therapist that is going to add value to the industry in itself is without question my goal. So I just want you to know that. I know these things have changed. I know that virtual learning, those types of things, a lot of different things that are in play here. But as a commission, we are driven towards that task of making this industry exceptionally powerful in our state and to make sure that it is a value added. And so whatever I can do, you have my email, you have my contact information. I'll be happy to make sure that I'm here. I mean, I apologize as far as running late. I'm running two things at one time, but this advisory committee will have my full attention. And I will make sure that I pay attention to what happens here. So thank you so much for your time. Chairman, I yield it back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Brian, I recognize Brian Francis.
I was just excited. Just having the chairman here is a big statement about his concern and how important this industry is to the commission's focus. So I just wanted to just tell him thanks a lot for breaking away out your busy schedule to spend some time with us. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mm-hmm. Anna, has there been any success reaching Mr. Sproles?
Anna, you're on
Anna, you're
mute.
muted.
That never happens. So he was logged in for a moment, but he did cut out. So once he logs back in, we'll go ahead and hear his public comment. If you'd like to, sir, continue with our staff reports for now.
Very good, I will.
Chairman Lauterstein, Mary Winston here. We are on the phone with Mr. Sproles, so he may be hopping back in as soon as his technical difficulties get worked out. So yes, definitely proceed.
Okay, thank you. So the next report would be from the Education and Examinations Division, and I'd like to call on Rebecca Armas, please.
Good morning, Chairman Lauterstein and advisory board members. My name is Rebecca Armas, and I'm with the Education and Examination Division, and I'll be providing you with a few updates this morning. As you see on the first page, we have our statistics for continuing education providers. Granted, this is as a whole, all of our providers that we are working with, and our jurisprudence examinations that have been administered thus far in the first 3 quarters and first month of the 4th quarter. Moving on to our second slide, you'll see the massage schools that we have at this time. Looks like for quarter 3, we were at 63, and now we're back down to 61. And one of the other things, we've got 3,037 massage student permits have been issued since July 8th. And another thing that we're working on is making improvements to the PALM system to make it, a lot more user-friendly. We also have PALM's manual there for any instructors that are having issues. It'll help them out. We are going to kick up again the recommendation of the state of Texas massage examination. This is not replacing anything. This is just providing another avenue, and it's a slow process. It's not anything that's going to take effect tomorrow. We just wanted to let you know that is in the works. We're getting ready for our bill implementation, of course, of SB 1130. We've got our occupational and technical services team is going to be developing processes and procedures with the bill implementation team as well as with our general counsel to figure out what that's going to look like. It's another avenue. Schools are not required to do distance education. Again, TDLR is very, very familiar with the process of distance education as we provide that in some of our other programs as well. So we have a lot of background in being able to put a successful program together and what it looks like as far as the implementation and assisting schools with the ease of being able to use it and getting comfortable with being able to use it. So just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a brief update on that. And of course, it will be covered by our general counsel later on in the meeting. I just wanted to let you know what our E&E staff has been working on towards the implementation of this bill. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the part of the board? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Lauterstein, I'm
Yes,
sorry
yes.
to interrupt, but it looks like we have Mr. Sproles in our lobby.
All right.
Mr.
Finally.
Sproles, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for y'all's patience.
Of course, of course. You will have 3 minutes to speak to the advisory board. They are not allowed to ask any questions or comment on your public comment unless it's a clarifying question. You're going to have 3 minutes, sir. I'm going to go ahead and time you, and you can begin at any time.
Okay. I am David Sproles, here to provide advice and recommendations, or at the very least to offer comments to our Massage Therapy Advisory Board for TDLR. In the future, when there is no time constraints, I'd like to address it further. But my point is, innovation and collaboration in the massage industry needs to be encouraged regarding higher education or college and online education. Massage schools are still following a teaching format that was established decades ago. The traditional in-person format has been used by everyone in every field or industry, from grade school and higher education to skilled trade professions and any on-the-job training of a prospective workforce. The traditional in-person format is certainly a tried and true method of instruction, but my question is it the best method for reaching the minds of today's students? Students of the 21st century, students of today, have been shaped by a contemporary format, which is an integrated media environment receiving information in person and online. In our post-pandemic and current society, the massage industry needs this hybrid of traditional and contemporary learning to be more collaborative and integrated. We can do this by encouraging higher education or college to partner with us in a massage program. We can do this by developing our own online education or providing feedback to further develop currently existing online systems to partner with us in a massage program. I researched and watched the Senate bill recently, and everyone that spoke in the hearing seemed to struggle with the transition from traditional systems to contemporary systems and what to call this online format. I'd like to inform y'all that it is done online, and it would be called a learning management system. While it's new to the massage industry, it has been developed and has procedures, processes, and protocols that the massage industry can utilize. If we are willing to be innovative and collaborative, we can adapt these systems that already exist to better fit our needs in the industry. Everywhere you look today, information is being presented through a fusion of narrative images and online information in addition to in-person instruction. This is needed in our massage industry today to make massage therapy affordable and convenient and accessible while maintaining high-quality trained and licensed massage therapists. We need to collaborate with industry leaders to explore and develop this, and I can help you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I continue?
Yes, sir. I think you have a little bit more time left, Mr. Sproles.
Yes, sir, you have about 30 more
Okay.
seconds.
I watched the Senate bill hearing recently where y'all discussed that, and I hear your concerns of fraud and human trafficking issues and the efforts to safeguard against that, and we need to continue protecting the public and current massage therapists and prospective therapists or students. Simultaneously, we need to do this in a manner that allows the massage industry freedom to have more options. This option of higher education and online education is just that. It is an option. The protective measures in place that y'all have worked hard to maintain will currently still be in place. And this just allows for another option in freedom. And I understand that y'all have concerns on that, and I would like to offer further advice and further input on helping y'all develop this in a acceptable and tangible way for y'all.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sproles?
Yes. Yes, I'm here still.
Are there
Thank
any
you so much for
questions?
your public comment, sir. We appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Very
Y'all
good.
have a good day.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the Enforcement Division and to hear from Rebecca Burkhalter, please.
One comment, David, did we finish with the education examination?
Oh, it's a good question. Had we?
I believe Rebecca concluded her presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Okay, then let's proceed with the Enforcement Division.
Good morning, board members. My name is Rebecca Burkhalter. I'm a prosecutor for the Enforcement Division. The first thing is I have some personnel updates for you. We hired 3 attorneys to fill the vacant attorney 2 positions that were created by promotions within the Enforcement Division. I'd like to welcome fellow prosecutors Sarah McKinney, Rachel Session, and Hunter McKinley. They will be working on our inspection cases, which does include massage inspections, and their hiring was effective as of April 15th. Now let's go to some statistics for the massage program. We are nearing the end of our fiscal year for 2021. These statistics are for the first 3 quarters of 2021 through the end of May 2021. You'll see the massage program continues to take up a large portion of enforcement's caseload. The next page contains the case outcomes for the first 3 quarters of fiscal year 2021, including 7 commission orders, 43 default orders, and 120 agreed orders. Collectively, the Enforcement Division has already assessed over $500,000 in penalties, and we have collected $245,150 of the penalties assessed. There were 37 licenses revoked for disciplinary actions and 24 revoked for criminal history. 9 cease and desist orders were issued. 480 cases were settled through informal resolution. Remember, the next graphic of alleged violations at opening is only what was alleged when the case was originally opened with TDLR. I prefer to focus on the top violations which resulted in disciplinary action, which is on the next page. You'll see we're still seeing a lot of unlicensed individuals that are practicing massage therapy, but there are also a lot of consultation document violations found. Board member Stone asked in our 2021 meeting about sexual misconduct versus sexual assault violation. The question was about whether or not there were criminal cases. I cannot confirm whether or not there are companion criminal cases on either type of violation, but I wanted to circle back and clarify that sexual misconduct is the violation alleged if a therapist provided illicit services, and sexual assault is the violation where a therapist violated the client in some way by crossing a professional boundary. So I just wanted to circle back and kind of explain the difference between those 2 violations. The next batch of statistics are for fiscal year 2020 overall. And if you'll keep scrolling down just a little bit, Anna, I wanted to show you guys, there is an outlier on these statistics. Scroll down just a little bit more, will you please, Anna? Thank you. Wait, up. Sorry. I'm trying to talk about the consumer restitution. So Presiding Officer Latterstein asked us in the last meeting about restitution. TDLR does not have the power to order restitution in any of our programs. However, there are certain circumstances where the parties work together to come to a solution, including an informal resolution. So you'll see that we do have a customer restitution that appears here for the past fiscal year, and it resulted from one case where there was a set of massages provided and the respondent, as part of an agreement, offered to refund those services, which we do consider to be restitution. So I'd like to move on and discuss some cases, unless you guys have any questions.
Board Member Stone, I had just one question, and maybe this has been asked before, and I apologize if it has, but any penalty monies collected that you showed up at the first part of the report, and maybe even the consumer restitution for that matter, does that just go into the state's general fund?
I am hoping somebody else will come in.
I'll jump in, Rebecca.
Thank you,
So,
sir.
this is Brian Francis, Executive Director of TDLR. Board Member Stone, in regard to the restitution, that's the exciting part. That goes directly to the consumer. So that does not go into the coffers of the state. The penalties, they would go into GR, the Government General Revenue Fund, and then it matches up to our revenue. But the restitution does go directly to the state. And as you're aware, the sunset process really formalized and gave us basically more consistent authority to do restitution for all of our programs across the board officially. So very excited about that piece.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Please continue.
Thank you, Director Francis, for helping me out there. So the next batch is about the cases. I wanted to remind you guys, these are just a representative sampling of some of our cases, and I try to pick them out to highlight certain things. So the first case, Mina She, I wanted to highlight this case to show the Enforcement Division is still prosecuting unlicensed massage establishments and unlicensed therapists very, we are still prosecuting those to the best of our ability. This was the establishment's second violation. That's why the penalty is a little bit higher. You'll see that cease and desist order was also issued in connection with this case. This one was handled by one of our inspections attorneys who was promoted. Her name's Amanda Barrera. The next case is Jose Rodriguez. I wanted to highlight this case because it's a rare instance where the department took action against a student permit. His permit was revoked, and he was also asked to pay a $33,750 penalty, which has been paid. And to circle back, this is an instance where the offense would have been labeled in our system as a sexual assault versus a sexual misconduct. The next case is Brian Curtis Beckfold. We do not have a lot of commission decisions where the case went through the entire contested case process, but we do have two of them for you today. This first one was handled by my fellow prosecutor, Morgan Cumming. This is another sexual assault type situation, and Mr. Beckfold's license was revoked, but the administrative law judge at the State Office of Administrative Hearings did not impose an administrative penalty. Our commission modified the proposal for decision to go ahead and include a $5,000 penalty, which is within the enforcement plan that our advisory board adopted. The next case is Margarita Dritzis. This is another commission decision. This case was mine, actually. The respondent was fined $3,000. This is a situation where there could have been an argument for restitution if the respondent had wanted to settle the case, and there had been kind of a refund of the massage services that had been, the prepaid massages that had been provided, but that was not of interest to the respondent on this case. So she was issued a $3,000 fine. All right, the last case is Jing Shen. I wanted to highlight this case because it shows how hard the department is working to prosecute unlicensed massage. This default order resulted in almost a $50,000 fine. This case was a coordinated effort between the Houston Police Department and our own enforcement investigators, and this fine is being referred to the Attorney General's office for collection in accordance with our typical procedures. And that's all, unless you guys have some questions for me.
Russell Rust, I'd like to one question. Could you let the board, me and you had discussed, sometimes we see a disciplinary action that's it's posted onto the website, but that's just y'all's fast reaction to try to get whatever saw for that moment. That doesn't mean that that's the final order, or there's not something else that's in the process. Is that what me and you had discussed at one time?
Sir, if you're specifically referring to a cease and desist, I can explain. A cease and desist order goes out and it becomes public on our administrative page automatically. As we've discussed during prior board meetings, a notice of alleged violation, when we issue that fine, the respondent has 30 days to respond. They can also request a contested hearing, which would go to the State Office of Administrative Hearings. So if that's what you're trying to highlight, that is accurate. A cease and desist would become public right away. A notice of alleged violation, which would involve fines, those are not published immediately because they have to finalize, we have to get a final order.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Susan Sparks, board member. Rebecca, at what point, and I guess I'm referring back to the first case, the Goodfoot, at what point, that was her second violation, at what point do you say no more? Like say she's went back to work again and the same thing happened. At what point do you say no more or cut her off?
Well, that's an excellent question. As you already know, we issue a cease and desist order in connection with this case. A cease and desist order is one of those things where we are increasing prosecution. The next step, if they continue to violate the cease and desist order, is to refer it to the Attorney General for an injunction. So if fining them isn't enough, the next step is the cease and desist. We can go to the Attorney General for an injunction. That's kind of our typical process.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Board Member Gracia, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you go back to the Crystal Spa below? Yeah, my unit was involved with that investigation. I'm glad to see that it finally made the TDL cut to be presented. Yeah, it took a while for it to come to face, but that place is totally cleaned out, and my differential response team, as well as our city legal, handled business with that specific location. But I have another question, though, a comment on another enforcement action. It was Sunny Spa on Westheimer, and we were waiting for it to take enforcement action on the location, waiting for the license to expire. But then TDR got to help them get their license renewed, and that place has been a problem in our side for a long time, just as Crystal Spa. And can you make a comment on that? How can we prevent that in the future?
Sergeant Gracia? I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm going to hop
Please
in.
do, Mary.
Mary Winston. Sergeant Gracia, we work with you often with our enforcement division as well as our anti-trafficking unit. Right. And we will happily kind of discuss that very specific case with you offline after this, because it's not one in the report, so we want to stay on the agenda. And also, if it's a pending action, we want to make sure we don't highlight something here while we're working in the background. That one's still working, so let's chat about that after the meeting.
Okay, but also had accommodation for Gloria Newton and Ray Carswell. They came down and did a presentation for us. We had on July 15th, we had Northwest Human Trafficking Task Force come down for a presentation, and they did a phenomenal job presenting y'all anti-human trafficking unit to people from Louisiana to get an update how we do stuff in Texas.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I hope they're listening.
Gloria Newton and Ray Carswell.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good work. Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Sure. Let's move on to the Regulatory Program Management Division, which is going to be, I'd like to call on Jerry Gonzalez, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm Jerry Gonzalez with the Regulatory Program Management Division, and I'll be presenting your report today. We'll start with personnel. During our last meeting, we had 2 vacant positions on our team, and effective February 1st, I'm sorry about that. I'm pleased to announce that we have now filled those positions with the addition of Angela Sanders and Sean O'Neill. Angela comes to us from the Field Inspections Division and has worked with TDLR since 2017. She was a licensed cosmetology operator and cosmetology instructor. Angela lives and works in Corpus Christi. Sean also came to us from the Field Inspections Division, and he's worked with TDLR since 2005 when the barber program was transferred over to TDLR. Sean has been a licensed barber since 1984 and is a veteran of the U.S. Army. Sean lives and works in Houston. Both Angela and Sean have been a valued addition to our team. Our current projects. Currently, we're evaluating, reviewing with the end of the 87th legislative session, all the past legislation and working on different bill implementation teams to make the necessary program updates. We've also been working with the new development of the new Texas licensing system, the TLS, massage being one of the first programs with the new system to be implemented. We anticipate the system to go live fall of this year of 2021 in November or so. We've also been working with the executive staff and other divisions to discuss and develop outreach opportunities to the profession regarding the current atmosphere of harassment and mistreatment of massage therapists. We also met and discussed the issue with a standard of care work group. And we continue to help other divisions with questions that arise during investigations or inspections, as well as address the daily industry questions and emails that come into our office. As far as our outreach, we anticipate returning to outreach efforts. However, we're still monitoring the COVID situation and may have to make decisions based on the current numbers at the time of the scheduled event. But if you have any conferences, meetings, or professional associations or something you would like for us to be present at or available for, please contact us and we'll see what we can do, be it in person or virtual. That concludes my report, unless you have any questions or anything I can answer for you.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr.
Thank you.
Gonzalez. I appreciate it. All right, let's have a report from the Field Inspections Division. Ron Gericke, please.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'd like to first start off with congratulations to Eric Beverly, who has accepted the Director of the Field Inspections Division. Eric joins us February 1st, and he comes from TDLR's Office of Strategic Communications, where he served as Senior Government Relations Officer since November of 2016. And Mr. Gonzalez already briefed Angela Sanders and Sean O'Neill moving over to the RPM position. If you look at our statistics, you can see that we obviously, due to COVID shutdown, lost a lot of inspections. But if you look at the March, April, May quarter for 2021, you can see the uptick in those numbers for the massage establishments. And obviously, we don't have this fourth quarter available yet, and we'll have good numbers to represent that as well. Looking at the schools, the similar, we were shut down, and now we're on the move of hitting those in Texas again. I should say inspecting them, not hitting them. One thing this has done is we have been sampling virtual inspections selectively on some schools that are willing, as well as some massage establishments. So that is another tool that is in our toolbox, possibly for virtual inspections should something come again with the pandemic. Let's hope not. Some of the most common violations were with regards to public records for establishments, I should say customer records. Failure to attach a license photo with a license. That's something that was not required when we started the program. So it's part of our education process with the massage establishments that a license must have a current photo. Then again, most of the write-ups that we found are due to the consultation forms, change for the covering for draping and such. As far as schools, it's mainly with records and educating our public on the new Palm system and how to get them current in that for tracking students. Currently, we have 5 inspectors that we are training in the massage establishment process. We hope to have that done by the end of August, which will give us an 83% increase in field inspections for massage establishments. Again, we were shut down for several months due to COVID. We are actively pursuing the backlog and working on that process. That concludes my briefing, unless anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions?
I have one, Susan Sparks. Ronald, how many massage establishments on a good year, not a COVID year, do you guys aim to inspect per month?
A lot of it depends upon the inspector in the area. I can tell you, speaking for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that is my area as the North Region Manager. The inspectors here attempt to do 2, maybe 3 days a week of massage establishments. And to be honest with you, every door can be a new adventure unless it's a, I hate to say this, but Hand and Stone or a Massage Envy. You don't know until you get in there. It could be just several minutes to finish it, less than an hour. You could be in there for 2 or 3 hours, depending upon what you have to do. Some of it can be educating the public on the consultation forms, which can take some time as well. So there's really no set number, and I can give you that probably at the next meeting, or whoever presents can, because we'll have better data.
Yeah, just kind of interested on the ratio as far as how many massage establishments there are in Texas and how many actual inspections happen.
And remember, we only inspect the licensed establishments.
Gotcha. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for answering.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good question. Any others? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the executive office. I'd like to call on Christina Kaiser and Mike Arizmendez, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm actually going to start off with the introductions of Christina Kaiser and the Pips. It's first of all, it's just a joy to be back here in front of y'all. We've got to roll up our sleeves and get some work done. Senate Bill 1130 really primed the pumps, and it's going to really require us to work collaboratively, smartly, and find ways to get more folks licensed that are qualified, but also building those safeguards that we all know need to be in place. I'm going to turn over to Christina Kaiser, where she's going to give an overview of bill implementation and our bill efforts. Then Ray Pizarro will come on board. I think Mr. Russ was kind of hinting to this. On the agenda for E&E, you saw that there was going to be a specific discussion about the bill implementation efforts for Senate Bill 1130. Ray will highlight that here. And then our Deputy Executive Directors, Mike Arizmendez and David Gonzalez will back cleanup if there's anything else that needs to be addressed. And then Mary Winston will close out with the outreach statistics. So I'm going to turn over to Christina Kaiser.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm Christina Kaiser. I'm one of the Deputy Executive Directors here at TDLR. My area of responsibility is regulatory services. So the folks you heard from today from enforcement, field inspections, and regulatory program management are under my watch. And I couldn't be more proud of this group. So the legislative session. The legislature met for its regular session from January to June 1st. As with any other gathering of people at this time in history, the legislature was kind of learning as they went, trying to figure out how they were going to do this in the middle of a pandemic. And so we approached the legislative session with, I would say, two big priorities. If we could get two things past the legislature, this would be a successful session for us. And those were our budget and our sunset bill. As you have probably been briefed on in previous meetings, TDLR was under sunset review starting in 2019, and it's been quite a journey. So thankfully, those two big priorities, our budget and our sunset bill, both passed this legislative session. The passing of the sunset bill means TDLR was found to still be adding some value for the state of Texas, and we were continued in existence for 12 more years. So applaud for that, even if nothing else happened, right? So a big part of our budget that was important to us was an exceptional item to attain funding for the second phase of our Texas licensing system. That's the new combined licensing database that we're working on right now with a vendor. And so we're very thankful that we were given that funding for phase 2 of that. And work is moving forward on that right now. Just a couple of things I'll mention about sunset. Brian touched on this earlier. The sunset bill does give us across the board authority now to order restitution. And that's an important distinction. Previously, in the majority of our programs, we were only able to obtain restitution through an agreement between the department and a respondent. Now, with this new authority, we are able to order it. So if the commission chooses to order, or if the executive director in a default situation chooses to order restitution, that can be done. So that is a new and very valuable tool, because remember the discussion earlier about the money when it comes in, does it go to the consumer or does it go to the state of Texas? Anytime we have a chance to put some money back in the pocket of a consumer, that's a better outcome in my view, rather than it just simply going into the general fund. One other thing I'll mention, the sunset bill also gives us a new authorization to bring together multidisciplinary advisory boards. So if there are issues that affect a multitude of our regulated professions, we can pull together members from multiple advisory boards and address those issues one time, kind of with everybody in the room, instead of having multiple disjointed conversations with separate advisory boards. And I actually look forward to taking advantage of that, possibly as we implement some of the other provisions of the sunset bill, including the move toward risk-based inspections and the move toward complaint prioritization. So overall, during the legislative session, TDLR was monitoring about 300 bills that touched on TDLR in some way. About 50 of those passed at the end of the session. I'd like to ask Anna if she could just pop up TDLR's website really quickly and show you the place you can go to find those. So this is TDLR's main webpage, and this little box right in the middle with a picture of the Capitol, you can click there and scroll down, and you can actually, organized by program, you can actually scroll down and find the programs, or excuse me, the bills that passed that relate to massage therapy. So those are the big 5 that related to your program. Thank you, Anna. As Brian mentioned, with 50 or so bills having passed, we're now entering into the world of bill implementation. And this is where lots of staff across the agency get mobilized, get appointed to multiple bills. Specifically, Brian has created 28. Now that's as of my last look. Now he might have done some more since I wasn't looking, but I believe he has appointed 28 separate teams for various pieces of legislation. 11 of those are responsible for pieces of the sunset bill. So that's definitely our biggest lift this go round of implementation. So some of the things that the bill implementation teams do, they work on rule changes that are needed to implement legislation. They ensure that deadlines established in the legislation for rulemaking or other actions are accomplished. They update procedures, policies, forms, any other working documents of the agency that need to be updated to be consistent with the new legislation. And another thing they do that's very important is they communicate with the regulated industries about the changes. And that's done through these meetings, of course, but that's also done through other forms of communications that are targeted out by our Office of Strategic Communication. I think that's a good spot for me to kind of hand the mic over to Mr. Pizarro. I believe Brian wanted him to talk a little more about bill implementation for your program in particular.
Thank you all. This is Ray Pizarro, Director for the Education Examination Division. Brian, thank you for pausing and letting me jump in here with the 1130. As you know, SB 1130 passed, and it's talking about distance learning, distance education. TDLR has been involved with distance education, CE, school approvals since 2004. So the distance education is not new to the department. It's just another industry having that availability. So you'll be hearing later today on how we're going to implement this. You'll see proposed rules. Russ, Paul, you guys, we're going to be meeting. There'll be work groups to talk about these things. You're going to see after these rules are proposed, we're going to get comments. You'll hear Molly introduce new definitions of distance education. What does that mean? Those are in place in those rules. It's not correspondence, right? So we want to make sure we are doing the right thing, tackling the right issues that we may have in this industry, and making sure that our licensed schools understand that this is not a replacement. This is just another option for you guys to deliver. It doesn't mean Paul has to do distance education, right? Paul can continue to operate his school face to face, but if that opportunity arises, then he is going to apply to the department. In other words, notify us, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to have forms, we're going to have changes, and all of those procedures and changes on how we do that is going to involve you guys. It's going to involve the public comments, and we're more than likely going to go out there and possibly do summits and bring people in and let them understand how this is going to work as we move through the implementation of this bill. We want to make sure that these rules are tight. They address every little bit of issues. I know Russ may have some concerns, and those concerns we want to bring him to the table during work group meeting. We want to make sure that folks are just not handing out certificates, right? We don't want somebody just gaining a license or gaining education and did not seek that education in the proper way. So these rules are going to try to make sure those things happen and they're clear for the licensed schools. We've struggled through these same issues when we first started with driver education, when we first started with the cosmetology program. We implemented distance education. We learned from those industries. So we've gone through some of the pitfalls and the errors we made then, and we've corrected them, and we're learning here. And so with the help with the board members and the comments that we're going to receive, I think it's going to be something really going to help the industry. You heard some of the comments earlier. We need to put people to work, and this is going to be probably a good option for licensed schools. So rest assured, you're going to be a part of it. Pay close attention when Molly's going to give those that report today and talk about these proposed rules. But don't think that we're just going to propose the rules and adopt them. You guys know this process. It's going to be fluid, and we're going to be talking to you, and we're going to be having work groups and potentially summits. So I just want to put that out there. And Brian has gave me the baton on this particular implementation for me to carry it. So we have a good team internally we're going to be able to get this thing done and make some good headway and set some good guidelines for the industry. That's all I have. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Mr. Lauterstein, you're muted, sir.
First, are there any questions on the part of the board members? I just wanted to say thank you very much for responding to concerns that there are. And it's an assurance to know that the work groups will be looking very closely at that. And I share the concerns. Thank you.
Outstanding. I think it's up to Mike and David to see what they have, and then Mary will bring us home.
Presiding officer, this is David Gonzalez, Deputy Executive Director of Licensing Services. So I'm responsible for the Customer Service Division, the Licensing Division, and the Education Examination Division. And I saved that one for last because I just wanted to thank Ray for his eloquent and very concise. I'm usually wordy, so glad to have him on board to give us a concise example of how we run a bill implementation team. There are other bills affecting the agency. Ms. Kaiser did a phenomenal job with an overview and actually stole my thunder. The only thing I was going to offer and share was going to the website. I think it is the most important part we can do. Y'all participate. The people that do public comment, they already know they're engaged, but it's the others that are just listening in. If y'all don't know where to find this information, if y'all don't know where to go on our website, y'all might be left out. Y'all might be missing some of the details. So that web page that Anna was so kind to bring up and show us where the bills are at is going to tell you a little bit more about what each of the bills requires, and actually has links to the text on the legislation's website, Texas Legislature Online, that'll give you all the details of the things our agency will be dealing with. So House Bill 1540, I'm just going to go through briefly with some of these. A common nuisance bill that basically requires the owners of properties be made known if they've got some kind of prostitution or illegal massage operations going on. There's an obligation to let them know, and they have some responsibilities. Also, penalties for certain human trafficking offenses. Again, things that are affecting the massage industry. House Bill 2803, again, any unlawful activity that goes on requiring some kind of notification. If there's some tenant that's doing something wrong, they can let the other property owners can make a complaint and let them know about it. Signage is required basically in House Bill 3721 that would alert people to human trafficking and the notices that could go to the Department of Public Safety. And I know I'm going through these briefly. And then telehealth, which has been prominent with many of our health-related programs, and the options that are available. Our rulemaking authority expanded a little bit to make sure we can adopt rules that will allow for these telehealth conferences to give treatment. And that's all I wanted to add. Again, phenomenal job, Ms. Kaiser and Ray.
Chairman Lauterstein, this is Mike Arias-Mendez. I'm also Deputy Executive Director here at TDLR. I just want to touch on one particular thing that Kaiser mentioned was the legislative appropriations request. In May of 2020, the governor, Lieutenant Governor, Speaker sent a letter out to all state agencies requesting a 5% budget reduction, which we complied with immediately. Then essentially what happened was that they requested that we take that 5% budget reduction and carry it over into our next biennium, which we did. We made a couple of efforts to try to reinstate the 5%, but they're still following through. And at that point in time, when they requested the 5% budget reduction of May of last year, we were in the throes of COVID, and the budget numbers seemed to be not good at the time. They were projecting a $7 million shortfall. I'm sorry, it was a $4 billion shortfall, and it has since swung back. That they did see that we're now back in the surplus, although it's very small, but we do have a surplus. But even with that, they've asked that we continue to institute the 5% biennium budget reduction cut, which we do have. So we're running a little thin, but just know that we'll continue to provide the service for the state of Texas as we've done in the past. And that's all I wanted to add to this. Thank you, and I'll be available for any questions.
I have one question, Russell Rust.
Yes, sir.
I thought the way DLR was set up is that it was kind of self-sufficient. I know y'all get budgets, but I thought each licensing each license division y'all have paid in enough with their fees and everything that made TDLR self-sufficient. Is that not quite accurate, or do y'all need more for certain other things?
Well, it's a great question. What we normally do is we try to ensure that each program is able to pay for itself, and that's based on the fees that we collect. And so I think through that, you'll see that historically what's happened is that we're able to find programs that we can do a fee reduction because there was a surplus of monies that was being collected through that particular program to cover all the expenses. We still had a surplus, so we're able to reduce fees down in order to ensure that we continue to meet the needs. But through that, what happens is that we had to find budget reductions that would take place in either travel, salaries, any other type of office expenditures that we may have in order to comply with the budget reductions that they were looking for. So while I could say that we do our best to be self-sufficient, we do rely on the appropriations given to us by the legislature to ensure that we're able to meet the needs and services.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for any of the people who've been testifying, reporting for the executive office?
Mr. Lauterstein, if there are no more questions, I'll give that final agenda item.
Thank you.
Communication outreach statistics. I wanted to first start with Mary Winston. I'm an attorney here at TDLR. Aside from my work that I do with the advisory boards, I also manage our anti-trafficking unit. And Sergeant Gracia, thank you so much for those that shout out, those kind words. Those two particular specialists had food poisoning that day and gave that presentation. That's something you don't know that's coming until it's there, right? And they gave that presentation while taking turns, throwing up. But it's a good thing that no one knew that, and it was successful, and that was a great shout out. It's really a great team, and they worked very hard. And Mr. Russ, as you know, yes, we try to be self-sufficient, but you also know we had 9 disparate licensing systems. And those were some very old, some very new that we inherited. And to bring all that together, yeah, we had to reach out to make sure that we had the funds to do that, and the legislature so kindly granted that. On to the communication outreach statistics. This is just a snapshot of how the public, and including our licensees, reach out to us for information via our website. It lets us know how many and the information that they're seeking. Over the past 6 months, through July 14th, the massage therapy webpage has had over 200,000 views. That's an average of over 1,100 per day. 44% of those visitors access the site from their desktop computer, 54% from their smartphone, and 2% from a tablet. And each time I read this in each advisory board, it lets me know how, and it lets our web team know how the public is reaching us. And those numbers vary from smartphone to tablet to computer. It lets us know where we're being most effective. Top reasons for visiting the site: how to renew a massage therapist license, fingerprinting instructions for current license holders. I believe Chloe Whalen gave a little extra shout out and a reminder about having to get those fingerprints in. And I see David gave a thumbs up because that's something we want to make sure we get done. It's a requirement. Examination requirements, frequently asked questions, and administrative rules. Again, this is just a snapshot of how everyone is reaching out to us and the information we're providing, and it gives us an indication on how better to serve and to provide this information. If there are any questions? If not, thank you so much.
I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe too specific, but someone brought up to me the issue that many people, when they go for fingerprinting, either because of the work they've done or whatever, they can't actually get fingerprints. And there's some concerns about therapists not being able to get their fingerprinting done because they just don't have sufficiently visible fingerprints. Has there been any discussion of that or concerns about that?
So they're not able to get them done because they can't catch a print? They can't get a print? Okay, okay.
Mary Russell Rust here. What the situation happens of that is the person would go back to the facility itself a second time. And if in a second time they're unable to capture those fingerprints, then they would notify TDLR and they would proceed with another way of doing that. But you must go back to the facility for a second time. And then once that facility determines that those are unprintable fingerprints or unable to read, then they actually go back to TDLR and they will go through another process to issue that license.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. That was very helpful. Ms. Guerin?
Muted.
Carolyn? Okay.
Okay, Caroline Guerin, board member. I have a couple questions. I have students that are licensed that no longer live in Texas, but they want to keep the Texas license. What do they do about getting fingerprinted if there's not an Indentigo where they live?
That's a good question. Our licensing person, Chloe, I don't think is still online. Can I get that information to you for out-of-state licensees who want to go to another facility? I'll have to find out who our third-party provider is, and we'll get the information for you.
Okay.
Mary, I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chloe is here. Chloe?
Yes, Chairman Carolyn, they can contact Identigo, and Identigo will give give the individual instructions on how to proceed with getting their fingerprints completed.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone. Any other questions? Okay. Now, I believe.
Can I ask you a question real quick, David? I'm sorry, Paul Stone, board member. I don't know if there's any coffee drinkers out there, and I hate to delay the rest of the meeting, but can we take just a 5-minute break? Is that okay with everybody, or is?
That would be okay. I would like to then have a break. My computer says 11:17. Well, 5 minutes. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order and to ask for a report from the Standard of Care Work Group, which will be presented by Board Member Carolyn Guerin. Are you, you need to unmute.
Hello, Caroline Guerin, board member. The Massage Therapy Advisory Board Standard of Care Workshop met on May 21st, 2021. Meeting attendees included David Lauterstein, Susan Sparks, myself, Kitra Taylor, and TDLR staff. The work group reviewed and discussed recent events regarding the current atmosphere of harassment and mistreatment of massage therapists. We had a very good discussion and shared several thoughts and ideas on how to help our profession. That's the end. We're still working on it.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Well, thank you for doing that, and thanks for the report.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now, I'd like to call on Molly Fudel, who will give a discussion and possible recommendations on the proposed amendments to existing rules. And I'll hand it over to you, Molly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lauterstein. My name is Molly Fudel. I'm an Assistant General Counsel here at TDLR, and I'm here to present the rules for you this morning. So these rules have not been published yet. So after I go through the rules with you, I'll be asking for your recommendation to publish, and then we'll have the 30-day period for public comment. First, before I get started, I want to say that these rules were a collaborative effort across several divisions here at TDLR, and I want to give my sincere thanks to folks in enforcement and education and examination, as well as field inspections and regulatory program management for all their help and their hard work on these. So I will go ahead and give you an overview of the rules, and then I'll go line by line through them. First, these rules implement SB 1130, which allows massage schools to provide distance learning in certain topics of the massage curriculum. And I did get some last minute updates to you on these rules on Friday. It's a little bit later than I would have liked, but I do think that with those updates, these rules provide a lot of detail for folks who are going to need to know what's expected of them. So second, what these rules do is they implement HB 1540, which is, David Gonzalez touched on that a little bit. It made a lot of changes. Most salient for us in the rules is that it made changes to the definition of sexual contact in the massage statute. I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the rules. And then third, these rules make changes in response to some of the violence and harassment that Ms. Guerin just mentioned. And these rules, we understand that they are not going to solve every problem, but we do think that they're a step in the right direction and part of some of the things that we discussed at that meeting. And then finally, the rules make clarification and cleanup changes. So I will go ahead and share my screen and go through the rules line by line. Since I'll be sharing my screen, it's going to be hard for me to see if you have your hand raised. So I would say if you have a question, feel free to just state your name and go forward with the question, and I will do my best to answer. Okay, so here the first change is in 117.2 definitions. We're adding a definition of distance learning, also known as distance education. We are also renumbering the rest of the section to reflect this new definition. Scrolling down to the next section, 117.50. And here we're stating that a massage school that wants to offer distance learning must obtain department approval in writing before offering that, and that they'd have to obtain additional approval before changing the technology or method of providing that, or if they wanted to expand the curriculum that they're offering through distance learning.
Russell Rust, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
in public comment and some of the public comments, they were talking about the exemption for a higher education, a community college, a university. A university or community college doesn't have to get permission to teach distance learning. That is not a requirement. So in this change in this bill, or in 1130, with the changes, a community college and university don't have to get permission from TDLR to do anything. They can teach their learning however they want. Is that not accurate?
So these rules pertain to massage schools that are regulated
That are
by
licensed. Yes, ma'am.
TDLR. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah. go ahead.
Molly? Oops.
Yes, sir.
I think you muted yourself.
Since we're allowed to do distance learning already through massage schools now, what's the timetable for this?
So we are already asking massage schools to obtain approval from the department before offering distance learning. And there are some other requirements that we've already haven't had in place under COVID. But these specific rules, which are a little bit more detailed, these will be in effect after they're adopted by the commission, and we're looking at an effective date of mid-December.
Thank you.
All right, so I will go ahead and keep going. Here in 117.55, and then in C3, we're talking about required documentation. And here we're requiring massage schools that offer distance learning to maintain the documentation required that's related to distance learning. And you see there's a cross-reference to 117.59M. And I'll get to that further along in the presentation, and that'll become clear to you what exactly that means. And then here we're adding a subsection E stating that the department may inspect a school's instruction, including observing or auditing any instruction offered through distance learning. Before distance learning, our inspectors could, when they were on an inspection, just stop in through class and see exactly, the instruction that was being offered. As the world has changed and now distance learning is a thing, we figured that we should add this provision in, making it clear that the department can inspect the instruction even if it's not there at the school. And then here in 117.58, we've got a language update. And as I go through the rules, you're going to see a bunch of these parts where we're updating the language, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything new. It's just when these rules were written, everything was thought of in terms of live instruction and in-person classes. And so we're updating the language to make it clear that, for example, here, when we're talking about the contact person, they're responsible for the organization of classes and also other instruction, including distance learning. Okay, so in 117.59, here in C, another language update. So we're talking about a classroom hour or an instructional hour, and we're talking about instruction time, not necessarily classroom time. Here in D, we wanted to make it clear that the instructor must be physically present with the student during any in-person classroom hours, and that includes in-person makeup work. Makeup work is fine to be done through distance learning, but it would have to comply with the rest of the distance learning provisions and the rules. And here in E, we're adding a couple sentences to state that the internship may not be offered through distance learning, and it would have to be completed at a massage school. During F, this is just a clarification. F pertains to the hands-on experience during the internship.
Hey, Molly, this is Brian Francis.
Go
Can
ahead.
you go back up to the internship being required? So in letter E, should we also maybe add in that last sentence, the internship must be completed at a massage school licensed on this chapter and by a licensed massage instructor, just to reinforce the language that's in the statute?
We can do that. I think that might be in another section already, but I'll make a
defer
note
to you
to
then.
check on it.
I'll defer to you. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. All right, and so F is a clarification that we're talking about the hands-on experience during the internship. H is another one of these language updates. Here we're talking about the supervised course of instruction, and we're stating that unless otherwise agreed to by the school and the student, the school has to provide those hours at the physical site of the school, or if allowed by the rules and the statute through distance learning. In I, we've got more language updates talking about instruction rather than just classes. And we're stating that no evening class or required instruction may be scheduled to extend beyond a reasonable time. Okay, so here we're getting into M, and this is where we have most of the requirements for the schools that are choosing to offer distance learning. And our goal here was to provide some minimum standards that schools would have to comply with, but to give schools enough flexibility to determine how they want to comply with those. What's the best way for them to do it and for themselves and their students. So in M1, we're stating that a massage school must verify the identity of a student receiving instruction through distance learning. In 2, they would have to accurately track the hours each student completes through distance learning. In 3, the school must monitor each student's participation in distance learning to ensure that the student is receiving instruction. And any class, lecture, or recitation, whether offered through live instruction or not, must offer an opportunity for direct interaction between the instructor and the student. And then also when distance learning is provided through a method that's not live instruction, the instruction must be interactive. And we've added some detail on what that means. And so this is taken from the federal rules, the Department of Education rules, so you might feel like you're having deja vu, you might have seen it before. But we wanted to provide this to give some regulatory certainty to the schools to understand exactly what that means. And we've got some examples here. And then in 4, the massage school must document compliance with paragraphs 1 through 3 for each student who receives instruction through distance learning. In 5, the school must ensure that the students receiving instruction through distance learning have the educational materials necessary to fulfill all course requirements. And then in 6, the massage school may not use distance learning to provide the instruction required by section 455.156B1A of the statute. And that's the section that pertains to the theory and techniques and the practice of massage therapy. In 7, we're stating that a massage school that uses a time clock or similar technology to track student hours through distance learning may not alter the time clock records except in a documented case of technological failure or other situation which is documented by the school. And that requirement is already in place for a physical time clock, but we thought that it should also be in place for a time clock that's used for distance learning. And then and this is shifting gears entirely. This is part of the response to the recent violence and harassment that's been reported against massage therapists in general. And it's something that we discussed at that standard of care work group meeting, as Ms. Guerin mentioned. So here we're stating that as part of that minimum 500-hour course of instruction, massage schools must provide information in protecting the safety of the massage therapist, including steps that they have to take if a client initiates sexual contact. And that information can be provided at any time in the 500 hours.
Right. Molly, I just want to say, shouldn't it say massage student as well, not just massage therapist?
That is something that we can add, yes.
Well, they are a student.
But they're not a massage therapist yet.
Right, so I guess what we're thinking here is the instruction would cover protecting the safety of the student as well as steps to take once they become licensed and they're out
Yes,
there working at a massage establishment or as a solo practitioner.
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Molly, this is Brian Francis. Board members, you know, the incident that took place in Atlanta, it knocked us to the core. It really, really affected how our agency thought about it. And I think you're aware that we sent out a video on May 3rd. We responded with another video on May 4th, posting to Facebook and our Twitter accounts. One of them was in 6 different languages, just speaking to the massage industry and letting them know that they're cared about, that this is important. These are those wonderful, rare opportunities where we actually have a chance to try to make a difference and improve the well-being of those practitioners. And I'm proud of the staff, and I'm proud of the work that the work group is doing in this area. Note that it says provide information. So we're not necessarily saying you got to teach something, but just having this moment to where you're helping these students and these future practitioners navigate those very difficult moments that can occur in the profession. We just thought it was so important, but this is one of those rare moments where I think we get to make a difference, to empower somebody with the skills of how to navigate that moment, as we know, can be life-saving, and as you know, very importantly can be. So I just wanted to highlight this moment, that this is important. I think we bring it up a little bit later down there in the consultation document as well. So
Thank you. All right, so moving right along to 117.62, and here in D3, this is another one of those language updates. We're talking about the enrollment agreement and what has to be in there. So right now under the rules, it talks about classroom and internship hours included in the program. We wanted to update the language to also include any hours that are completed through distance learning. 117.66 in D, we're also changing the terminology from classes to instruction. And 117.67, we have some clarifications here in B, and then you're also going to see in subsection D. We're wanting to change some of the language from accrued to successfully completed. Successfully completed is the term that's used throughout the rest of the rules, and it's also used in the statute. And so we want to go ahead and make this section consistent with the rest of the program rules. And we think it might clear up some confusion that's been out there. We're also adding this sentence in stating that the department may require massage schools to identify the location where hours are completed, or if hours are completed through distance learning. That would just be for in the future, if at some point we determine that we need more information about hours that are completed through distance learning. This would give us that ability. Okay, and here we go in D, we're adding the word successfully to make that language consistent. In 117.68, again, this update changing classes to instruction. In 117.82.
Excuse me, Russell Rust on attendance.
Yes.
I don't know that you've looked at this further down, and I didn't read anything work, but from advertisements that have gone out for distance learning, it was learn as you want on your time. So how would attendance apply to that if somebody can sign on for 10 minutes when they have a moment to learn and then sign on for another 10 minutes later on? How would attendance, how would that be a system that's in place for attendance with distance learning? I'm just going by advertisements I have seen for distance learning of massage, learn at your leisure, learn whenever you want, little or a lot. So how does attendance actually, how would that even apply for distance learning for an absence?
Well, I think that it's going to vary from school to school, and each school is probably going to have their own attendance policies. Here, the way that we're talking about it is that an absence is charged for a full day when a student attends none of the scheduled instruction. If it's not scheduled for that day, then it wouldn't necessarily be an absence. But keep in mind that there are other requirements in the laws and rules. You know, we're talking about a supervised course of instruction. And there's a requirement for schools to ensure that the student is progressing and is going to be able to complete the program. So I think through all of those, the school would have to determine on its own how it's going to comply with all those requirements.
Yes, and I appreciate the honor, the honor that schools will go into this with. So thank you.
Russ, this is Ray Pizarro, Director, Education Examination Division. I just wanted to add that, Russ, as we implement these rules and implement the procedures, these rules are going to give my team the resources we need to ensure that the licensed schools are operating within the means of these new rules. So we're going to have this tool to say, you're going to give us information, licensed schools, this is how I'm going to offer the distance learning, etc. This is also going to give the field inspection team that resource to say, Russ, are you adhering to your distance learning requirements on how you're delivering that method? So it's going to give us that handshake on both ends, which is why we're having these rules as you see presented to you in this way, because we want to make sure what we're saying here and what procedures are going to be enacted and how these rules are going to be working for the schools and for the students, that we all have a reasonable expectation of what should be delivered.
Thank you. And I understand the challenge, and I do respect that if there is a situation or let's say something's gone afoul, that y'all will take the steps of correcting those and changing or looking at changing rules to adapt to anything or any of the faults that might be in this going forward, I'm sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rust.
I have a question. Okay, Caroline Garing, board member. Going back to 117.59E, the internship must be completed at a massage school. What if they do online training somewhere else and they come to your massage school to do their internship theory and technique? Where do they graduate from? And when they go to take their exam, who is responsible for that?
Jerry Gonzalez, RPM. Carolyn, like we've talked about in the past, I don't think this has changed any as far as where the student goes, because they can have a multiple combination, different schools or not. You would basically have a contract enrollment agreement with that student for the number of hours and courses that they're completing at your program. So your transcript would give X number of hours, say 200, and the other course. So you would just be worried about those 200 that you're signed up for with that student, that contractual agreement.
Carolyn, this is Ray Pizarro, Director of Education. Remember, when the student is at your school, any student that are at your school currently, they would have a student permit, correct?
Correct.
That's what's happening. So they would be clocking those hours at your school. If they leave your school and they go to Paul's school, for example, Paul, you would drop them. Paul will have to enroll that student, and now that student will be clocking hours under Paul's school.
Okay. Now, do they have to get another permit for that?
No, they'll still be the same permit number. The hours are still there. It's just a matter of documentation that these hours are being clocked here and some of them have been clocked there. So you'll see in Palms, some students, and since these hours are so minimal, there's only 500, so you won't see it very much that students are jumping from a licensed school to another, but there may be existing students that will have so many hours, at this school and so many hours at that school. And we would have that documentation in POMS showing the total hours that they have completed and what hours were completed where.
Russell Russ, just to follow up on that one thing, also Palm system will graduate them. Therefore, TDLR has the ability for them to now take the examination. And that's what the future is going to look like anyway. TDLR giving the approval for an examination. So they would have the total hours and TDLR would be responsible for the examination part of it.
That is
Very
correct.
much.
And it's not, let me just clarify, Russ, this is Ray Pizarro, Director of Education. It's not just we have the exam, if you will, as you're saying, Russ, the hook on the exam. It's just we have provided the eligibility for that student to take an examination, whether it's the MBLEX or whether it's the state exam whenever we develop that. So it's not just that you got to take this exam or the other. We're basically going to say you have met requirements and now you're eligible.
Okay, but to follow up on that, you're not approving them to take the MBLEX. So that would require both schools that had both hours to approve that student the way MBLEX or way FSMBT does it now. We must approve the student. So that would require both schools to chime in on that.
Eligibility would come through TDLR. There's a handshake we need to have with FSMTV. We have been talking to them in the background on how this is all going to work. They've been looking forward to something like this because it makes their lives easier. Basically, we're going to give them a list of individuals saying these individuals have been vetted. They have acquired the necessary hours. They've gone through a licensed school. Basically, anything we send them, they're going to know that we've done our due diligence to make sure that that student is eligible to take their exam.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm going to go back to 117.82. I think that's where we left off. All right. Okay, so let's see. Here it is in E. This is to implement HB 1540. And this bill made many changes. But one of the things that it did is it changed the definition in the penal code of the criminal offense of prostitution. And it actually split it into two separate offenses. One is prostitution as we think of it, and the other is solicitation as prostitution. That used to be part of prostitution, and it's now its own separate thing. And so with that change, the bill updated the massage statute to talk not just about prostitution, but solicitation of prostitution. And so here we're updating the rules to match that. And then I'm going to move down to 117.91. Mr. Francis gave us a great intro to this, but these are changes to the consultation document in response to the events in Atlanta and some other events that have been reported by massage therapists as far as how they feel in their profession. And so what we're thinking here is we'd like to add a statement here in 6 that the licensee may end the massage session if the licensee feels uncomfortable for any reason. And this is similar to the statement that's in 5. In 5, it's that the client can ask the licensee to end the massage for any reason. Here in 6, we wanted to make it clear to the client that the licensee also has that ability, that it's a two-way street.
Tony Gracia, board member. So you're gonna sit there on this right here, you're gonna put licensee and client or client before may?
So in 5 pertains to the client ending the session, and in 6, the licensee ending the session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And also just something to point out, this statement in 6, we actually already added it to just the example consultation document that we provide on our website to licensees if they want to use it. It's strictly voluntary right now, but we do think that it would be a good addition to the consultation document. In 7, we'd like to add a statement that the licensee must immediately end the massage session if a client initiates any verbal or physical contact that's sexual in nature. And again, that is to educate the client on what will happen and what the licensee is required to do if that happens during a session.
Russell Rust, I have a question on that one.
Go ahead, sir.
I prefer the word sexual not be on my client form. I believe any massage or licensee can end a session if any initiated verbal or physical contact, period. If the person is waiting just for a sexual, that's not always the case, but I prefer, because I am a professional, my clients, not to put the word sexual onto my client file. But that's my opinion on that one.
Okay. So in 6, I heard you mention talking about any physical contact, and I think that would fall into the statement that we're adding in 6, that if the licensee feels uncomfortable for any reason, that they can go ahead and end it. But anyway, I'm just trying to say I think we've captured that, but I hear what you're saying about the word sexual as well.
Yes, we're professional. I don't want a client thinking that sexual, I mean, they don't read the whole thing anyway. So to see those words on there, just my opinion on that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Brian Francis. I like the specificity in 7, and I definitely understand what Mr. Russ is saying, but I think we can keep 6 the way it is and probably go forward with the, removing the sexual in nature language in 7 and still have the full realm of things covered. When I think about number 6, and you helped me with this when we were chatting about this last week, number 6 really reaches to a lot of things. I mean, the person could have a very explicit shirt on that's like, hey, you know what time it is, and it just starts implying or insinuating that they think they can get more from that experience, and that could be enough. But there's no physical contact, there's no verbal, but that shirt, that message that the client's wearing could be enough to make the licensee uncomfortable. And then in 7, the physical or verbal contact covers the other aspect of that. So I think we can get there. Mr. Russ, when the time comes, you can make that request for an amendment to that section.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to put that in front of y'all.
Yes, sir.
Board Member Paul Stone, if it's okay, I also had a point on number 7 under 117.91, and maybe I'm getting a little too much of a fine tooth comb here, but the rules do have to speak. It says if a client initiates any verbal or physical contact that is sexual in nature, and my concern is that that's subjective, it's interpretive. Should it be, I mean, maybe I'm just going overboard here. Should it be any verbal or physical contact that the licensee believes to be or feels is sexual in nature? Because, it is subjective, it is interpretive. One person might think something's sexual in nature, another person might not at all.
So Mr. Stone, this language was taken from another rule that exists.
Okay.
I believe it's 117.92E, and that requires the licensee to immediately discontinue the massage therapy session when the client initiates any verbal or physical contact with the licensee that is intended to arouse or gratify the sexual desire of either person. We looked at that and we thought it seemed a little too detailed for the purposes of this document, and I think kind of we were maybe anticipating some of Mr. Rust's concerns there. But if you have any suggestions for how to improve this language, we'd be very willing to hear that.
Okay, and it's not a major concern. I just think it is interpretive. It's obviously not a standard, if you will. It's a subjective opinion that might be different from one reasonable person to another reasonable person. But I'll think about it, and I might submit something that might slightly tweak the language.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So scrolling down here to B, we actually have a couple cleanup changes here.
We were going to change the word and to or. We think that the intent of this was an or rather than an and. And then also A1 to A4 would become A1 to A3. And here we're talking about the reasons why the licensee would have to provide an updated consultation form for the client. And right now it says if any of the information changes in subsections A1 through A4, A4 actually pertains to draping, and that's something that can't be changed. So it just doesn't make any sense for us to have that in there in that rule. So this is a cleanup change, and this actually was discovered by one of our investigators. I want to thank him for catching that. Scrolling down to 117.92 here in A5, again, we're adding in the solicitation of prostitution to implement HB 1540. And that's it for the rules. So at this point, I think what we would do is we would entertain motions for recommending publishing the rules, possibly with changes or as they've been presented today. Thanks.
Molly, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just pulled up my intake form. On there, I have if the client or the student is uncomfortable for any reason, the client or student shall be informed and the session will end. Can we just put something like that and not bring sexual into it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll turn this in then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Molly, I know that I appreciate all of the strictures that are going into place with regard to distance learning and so on. And I just want to say from the standpoint of the profession, there naturally are concerns that a similar level of rigor may not be happening. Is there any move toward collaborating with other agencies? Because everything that's being talked about will affect our entire profession. But so far, the strictures are going into place only with regard to licensed massage schools under TDLR. So I know there's a process, but I wonder, you know, the profession as a whole is naturally concerned about new things being proposed.
Well, so our rules on distance learning pertain to the schools that we license. I understand there are distance learning rules that are passed by the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, for those schools that I believe that's tied to federal funding for student aid. And I'm hoping maybe that Ray or some other folks who are more knowledgeable on this might be able to provide some information on that.
This is Ray, Director for Education Examination. I'll just say this is kind of what I was going to touch on, what Molly just did. We have looked at language with the DOE because we do work with them, especially those who are looking for funding. So we want to make sure that our rules kind of go hand in hand with kind of their requirement, what their needs are to their schools who are responsible and need to abide by their criteria. And again, we've done this with, for example, cosmetology. We've looked at those because those schools are also looked at by federal guidelines as well. So we work with them closely. Anytime we have a change, we have something going on with our state rules, we make sure our friends in the Department of Education are aware of it.
Good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian Francis. Now, I thought one of the public comments was spot on with Mr. Sproles saying, you know, hey, let's get together and let's talk a little bit. I remember years ago with our polygraph examiner program that there was some discussion about new polygraph devices that were created. And we actually held a summit to where these different devices were presented. And we, the staff, as well as the industry, was able to see what was out there. So literally it looked like a science fair and people would get up and do their presentation, the different techniques. I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say, let's find a moment in between here. Yes, we have plenty of experience, as Ray and Rebecca talked about, since '04 and dealing with distance learning, but it probably wouldn't hurt to invite some of the the community colleges and higher ed folks to show how they do their distance learning stuff for the edification of the staff and also for building some comfort with the industry of how it's done and what's out there. I think that would be a great little learning experience for all of us. So I'm going to look at Ray and I'm looking at David, and we'll get together and we'll talk about creating that moment. I think it'll be a great collaborative moment for all of us.
Thank you.
Can I make some, Board Member Paul Stone, Chairman Lauderstein, can I make just a comment?
Sure.
Okay. Obviously, I think school owners and their number, I'm the massage therapy establishment representative on the board, but I think also a school owner, and I think we're always looking to improve our current approaches and explore the implementation of new instructional methods as well. I think we're always looking for that. We want what's best for the industry. I know we heard, I think, 2 commenters today who were actually with us virtually, and then we maybe in our packets got maybe 6 or 7. The number that I give is probably incorrect, but 6 or 7 or so other commenters who submitted letters that we were able to hopefully review in preparation for this meeting. And one of those letters, I quote, referenced an outdated and antiquated schooling and training system. And I certainly understand that times are changing. Distance learning is certainly part of many similar vocational and other programs. But I just wanted to point out, and I'm not tooting our own horn here at Stone School of Massage, because I know your stories, you have a similar story that we do, but Stone School of Massage has been part of this training system since July 2005 for 16 years, and some of you have been at it for longer than we have. 2020 was a challenging year. Our lives were forever changed in March 2020, and the state of Texas very quickly and swiftly gave us the opportunity to teach virtually for the first time. We got a letter from FSMTB, which administers the MBLEX. It's probably been a month or 2 ago. And we are obviously in the state of Texas starting the development of our own test, and that's another issue. But we got a letter from FSMTB commending, and I want to commend our teachers. And again, I know you have similar stories, but our instructors here, Abby Stone and Sarah Hurley, they were commending us for our passage rate of 86.7% in 2020. So we're very proud of that. We're part of the system that apparently is antiquated. I just appreciate that. I know you guys have, we need to be producing more therapists. We know there's a shortage. We know that everybody's facing a shortage. Some of us offer professional services as well, and we're not able, even having access to the students through the educational process and having that relationship, we even have difficulty filling our own positions here. But it's not all broken. I think the people at this table on this board work tirelessly, I can't get the word out, but you know what I'm trying to say, to do the best we can for our students. And I think we go above and beyond. And I just want to point those things out, that some of the, most of the stuff that we're doing is spot on. And I think we're doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian Francis again. Ms. Stone, that is extremely commendable. And I think about it in terms of today with sports, and particularly football. You have all these incredibly complex offensive systems and, man, all the gadgets and plays, but you still have to teach people how to block, tackle, and catch. The fundamentals are still there. They haven't gone out of style. They're not out of vogue. They're still necessary. And I hear what you're saying, that there's an opportunity to blend the successes of what the schools have had today and meld it to some of these new technologies. But it is not an either or throw one out. And that's definitely not how we're looking at it. We see the value of the techniques that are there today. And that's why you heard Molly open up by saying, if a school chooses to use this, because I think some schools are going to say, hey, we are offering an in-person experience throughout, and that's going to entice some students. And some schools are going to say, we're going to do a hybrid of in-person and distance learning, and some will do distance learning for all the portions they can, and obviously in person for the internship and the hands-on. But you make a great point that we still got to block, tackle, and catch. That hasn't changed.
Russell Rust, I'd like to make one comment. The only way that we're going to know about these systems are in place, because I will tell you, as a proponent since 1994, and where massage has come since 1994, with the help of David, with the help of Paul, most of the ones getting into this industry now do not know where we come from and what innovations we have made, you know, with Jerry back there riding our butts to do things a certain way. Excuse my language, I'm sorry. To do a certain way, but we're not going to know the results of this education until we get test results. And I'm just going to leave it right to that. Until we get test results, we're not going to know what this innovation, because I'm very innovative in my school, how I teach. Haven't gone back to the Stone Age with, you know, rocks, even though they want to have rocks. But as Paul said, the ones that are in the industry that are coming into it should be very thankful to those of the past, or they would not have the abilities to do what they do now if it hadn't have been for the David Laudersteins and Paul Stone School of Massage pushing the Department of Health Services for advancement in what we do. I just wanted to put that on comment. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, until there's virtual massage, which no one is proposing virtual massage at this point, we need to honor these face-to-face interactions that have been so valuable. So till virtual massage, I think we're here to stay.
Absolutely.
So,
Here you go, David.
any questions for Molly Fudel? Any remaining questions about the rules? Okay.
Will we
Then
need to make a proposal to accept the rules as written now for public comment?
yes, and shall we look at the make a second? Is that a motion then, Raymond?
No, it was a call to question.
Okay. Anna, what would be the procedure here?
We would need a motion and a second, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the rules and to have them published for public comment?
I'll motion it to turn it into the public.
Carolyn Guerin motions it.
Caroline Guerin,
Is there a
board.
second to that?
Paul Stone will second.
Okay, very good. So the motion is passed, and those rules will then be.
We need to take a roll call vote. Is that correct?
Call for
Okay,
vote, David.
very good.
Russell Rust,
Aye.
Susan Sparks,
A quick question. Were we gonna change the language in that one section regarding sexual nature?
the motion is to publish the rules for public comment as written.
Oh,
Jerry Gonzalez. Susan, I think what I understood was that they were going to publish the rules as is, and during that 30-day comment period, we could suggest, and that's where that change would come in to
Okay,
change portion or language on there,
okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
Then I'll move ahead, yes.
Thank you.
Paul
Thank-
Stone,
Paul Stone, yes.
Caroline Guerin,
Caroline Guerin, yes.
Carol Willis,
Yes.
Antonio Gracia Jr.,
Yes.
Kitra Taylor,
Yes. Yes.
and presiding, thank you, and presiding officer David Lauderstein.
yes, thank you.
The motion passes, sir.
Okay. So are there any recommendations for the agenda items for the next board meeting?
Mr. Lauderstein, Mary Winston, TDLR.
Yes.
We need to give enough time for this 30-day posting, for the public comments to come in, and these rules will come back to you along with the comments from the public, and we'll get to discuss further. So that's going to be a major agenda item for that next board meeting.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Any other, I think next would be discussion of the date and time and location for our next board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian Francis. If I could go
Yes.
back to the items on the agenda, I'm
Sure.
definitely going to defer to Ray and David in this regard, but we may have an opportunity to do the, to invite the community college folks to the next advisory board meeting, so that it's not just limited to maybe a work group getting the benefit of that, but them having, you know, a portion of it, a 15-minute, 20-minute presentation of distance learning and that sort of thing, so that the full board can engage in a conversation about that. That's just something to think about. And we don't have to decide that today. But.
Okay, very good. I mean, as long as the advocacy, if that's to be done, is from all directions, not just one. Yep.
And we can definitely, Mary Winston TLR, put that as an agenda item just for that presentation. We've done it in the past for, I'm not sure if this board, I think so, but several different boards. So yes, that opportunity to make a presentation to the board is very proper.
Okay. So
One
Putting
comment,
Ray on the spot,
does-
but there you go.
Russ, one comment. Doesn't this 11:30 go into effect December 1st? So the rules would need to be done prior to that, or what was the date for the implementation of 11:30? I thought it was December 1st.
It's mid-December, I think.
Mid-December? Okay.
The statute or the bill requires the commission to adopt rules by December 1st.
Yes.
Once they adopt them, we have to give at least 20 days lead time before they're effective. And so they would be effective at that point.
Okay.
Okay. So would it make sense indeed to discuss the timing for the next meeting?
I'd recommend that we wait until we have a better idea of the exact date that the rules are going to be published, and then we can contact you guys to figure out when you're all available after that.
Molly, do you have a ballpark for the members, though, based on some of the timeline stuff we've been bouncing around?
Yes, I believe we are looking at late September, early October.
Okay. Well then, if there is nothing else to be discussed, I want to thank everybody for participating and collaborating with each other and coming up with a really good, helpful meeting. And Anna in chairing this, seeing it through, and all board members, all the TDLI people. Thanks so much. Thanks for your hard work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay, I'm calling the adjournment of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Great meeting. Good job, Anna.
Thank you.